If your coaching business feels messy, inconsistent, or way harder than it really has to be, it's not you. You're just missing a few simple systems. And once you have them, everything will be easier. In this video, I will tell you what systems I have set up in my business, which systems I set up too late, or at least later in the process than I wanted it to if I were looking back today. And I'll share a secret. That's most of them. I'm a little bit of an all-over person once in a while, so let's dive into what could really have helped me as a person with a lot of ideas, a lot of things in my head, and starting a business, and look at the systems that could be amazing to start if you are looking at starting a business or struggling in the one you already have running. Let's dive into it. I'm Diana, and I help solopreneurs, entrepreneurs with accountability, with getting their shit done. And I freaking love it, but it needs systems to work, both the job, but also the business as it is. So let us dive into some of the systems now. The first thing that you want to have a system around that you don't necessarily think about, because it's like, of course, it is what you offer and how to get people to that offer, because you don't want to offer a million different things right now. You don't need multiple income streams in the beginning. You want to start out with one thing, test it out, get clear on what is the value of that offer you have. So this is also about figuring out, of course, what you offer, but also who you are offering it to. Who's your core client? What is their major pain point? And what is the time frame that you're going to be working with your clients if you're selling a service? And what's the outcome? What is it that they are going to get from working with you? To have one price and one call to action, and see how that gets you going. Not only is it easier for your customers to know, okay, this is what you do, but it's also way easier for you not to get overwhelmed, not to figure, oh, I need to do this and this and this, or I need to figure out what offer my client actually needs. Well, you have one offer. There's not a lot to think about. The next thing you need is a system of how to get leads and how to keep track of those leads. So some kind of CRM system, but it's also already before that having a way of connecting with people. That can be content, that can be outreach. One of the things that I had a really hard time with was outreach. And really, I've changed the mindset of it. And now I call it interaction, because what I do I never do cold outreach. One, because it's not allowed in where I'm based, but also because for me, that's super hard. Like, that's just super hard. So what I do instead is, let's call it lukewarm. I interact with the people who comment, follow, like my content, so that in that way, I know that there's some kind of interest. There's a way to start building a relationship and getting them into my, getting them into my universe and getting them to become leads. This is also where you want to have on your website, you want to have an email capture so that you can get people sign up for your email newsletter and have them book in your calendar. After a lot of different testing, I use a program for emails called SendFox. It is AppSumo who made this. It's a really cheap option, and I think it works really well. And then for the calendar thing, I use same company, TidyCal, and that, in my book, is a great alternative to Calendly. Both works great, and I know a lot of people are super happy with Calendly. That's a subscription. I have a one-time payment, as it is right now at least. I did on TidyCal, and I can do, I think, everything that I can do in Calendly as well. So I'll link those in the description, of course. But having these things in place already, with especially like the ease of having people connect to your calendar automatically, so you don't have to sit there back and forth and figure out what time fits. You just block off times in your calendar that is open. That is such a game changer. Then, of course, a content system. So if people don't know you exist, then it's really hard. So you need some kind of system for what kind of content are you doing? Where are you posting that content? How often are you going to post content? And that, of course, is based on who's your audience. I always say two things. You want to look at who's your audience and where do you feel comfortable. I have, for many years, worked as a career consultant, and I feel very, very comfortable on LinkedIn. So that has been my main source of output of content. It's all about figuring out what fits your personality. And I want to say, start with one and do the research, figure out what works, where is your core audience, your ideal clients, and what do you like to do? And simply make a list. Make a list of all of the different areas or all of the different platforms, and then say, are your audience here? Yes, no. Where do you rank this in terms of what you like doing, what platform you actually like being on? And then you take the one that has like the biggest combined score, so that it becomes easy, but there's also actually a chance. Because again, if you love being on LinkedIn, but that's not where your target audience is, then it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? So really figure out that and then start. However, and this is something that can also be a really good habit to get into at the beginning, if part of your content strategy is to create shorts or reels, post them on both platforms, because you can have your editing software. Here I use Riverside, which is a new thing for me, to edit my full interviews. So the ones I'm doing right now are my full videos. My shorts, I do Opus Clips. And that is actually just a double, because you could do everything in Riverside, but I do both. And that's just what I like and how it works for me. But if you want to ease it, choose one. Okay. But the point here is, whether you do one or the other, you can set up the platform to auto post to Instagram, YouTube, all these things, so that you don't have to kind of be all over the place all the time. So choose one main focus, but also think, is there any way that I easily can kind of cross post here? Then the next thing you want is some kind of sales system. So people have come into your universe. They have decided that you're interesting enough to book a call with you. So you already have them on your calendar. The next thing that needs to happen is that you need to have a system for how you interact with them. It's a really good idea to have a good script for what it is you want to talk with people about. If you are not the kind of person who likes like a really, really typed out script, then have like things you need to go through. Like you have these 4 steps you want to go through in every sales call. Because the thing is that one thing is you're sure to get through all the important things, talking to them about them, all these things, but you also have a better way to evaluate yourself in where could you do better going forward. I have an amazing sales coach, Sasha, and again, I'll link, she's working with females and she is really good at teaching you about all of this, and I'll link her thing. You're going to get a shit ton of links below that you can look at if you want, but it can be a really, really good idea. A lot of people struggle with sales, and having that opportunity of working with someone who really knows sales, who can help you figure out where is it that you want to focus, what's the next step in your process in terms of sales, can also be a really good idea. But the very first step, have a system for when you have a call, and then also what happens afterwards. So when you're on that call and you sell them something, what do? Do you send them a payment link? Very good idea can be to get them to sign up directly at the call, because that is the best way to make sure that they actually do it. But the system here is, again, you want to have that link ready. You want to have those things ready so that you can do that on the call. Then, of course, you want to have that system where you send them to buy your products. It can be anything, really. I've been looking around. I needed a system that could do memberships and courses and individual product sales. So I ended up on Simplero, which I've been really happy about. It's a monthly subscription. There's a lot of different things. So remember to do your research in terms of what you need. It can also be, for example, TidyCal, the calendar system. You can have people pay for consultations through that. So it doesn't have to be harder than that. It depends on how you set up your business and your product. The reason I chose Simplero was because I wanted it to do both a membership and a course. So they can go in and sign up for the course and everything is already set up and it delivers. It might not be what you're doing first, because that's a lot of different things, but a lot of these different platforms and programs have different tiers. So I think Simplero have 3 different tiers. And it then depends on what are you on, where are you at, what are you willing to invest or have the opportunity to invest in right now. Again, link to Simplero. If you're interested, they have some really good guidance as well to tell you that you can kind of look at the program before you choose to invest in it, and amazing support in my opinion. I think another thing that I want to add in that has nothing to do with this, but that can be super important in the beginning and that you don't necessarily think about setting into systems a lot of the time is networking. So networking, whether it's online or offline often creates stronger relations to people, but both work really well. But actually putting this into a system and challenging yourself, making sure that you are getting out there and networking on a regular basis, because you want to be able to get out there and talk to people about what it is that you do. What is it that you help people with? And get those relationships working for you, creating ambassadors for yourself. Put it in a system in terms of both how often do you want to do in person? How often do you want to do online networking? But also track the people that you're connecting with so that you can be a good connector for them as well. So we also want to think about how can we help other people, because then they're more likely to help us. So create a system for that. And that leads very well into the next part of what you want a system for, and that is tracking. You want to track as much as possible. And this is really one of the things that I wish I had done earlier, because when you track, it's way easier to know what's going well and what's not. So if you start a marketing campaign and you don't have any data before, it's really hard to know if that campaign worked, right? So because you have no data to hold it up against, to analyze it against. So keep tracking from the beginning. And yes, the numbers can be a little bit discouraging. Maybe it's like, oh, I only had so many views or so many new subscribers or so many. But the thing is, when you track it, it's also easier to see that here something really happened. And one thing is that in the moment, it might be like, oh, I got X amount of new subscribers, or I made so many ticket sales, or whatever it is. And it feels amazing. But 2, 3, 4 months from now, that is probably not something you remember. And then you can go in and look in your tracking and see, okay, so this is what happened. This is what it was. Track everything from the beginning, your numbers, your sales, your everything. And there are some programs that are good at this. And by the way, going back to the lead tracking, it doesn't have to be some super elaborate thing to begin with. You can start by using something like Trello, where it's free version, super simple. You can use Notion. Again, that's a little bit more complex in my book, but it's something you can use, right? So going in and figuring out how to keep track of that is, of course, something that you need to figure out what works for you, because it's also very different from person to person. But the tracking part is important. So, okay, one thing is tracking your actual numbers. There's 3 other things that I would like for you to track. One is your time. So what time do you use on which tasks? And this is because, one, you might have client tasks that you need to actually tell them and provide number of hours, but it's also for yourself to kind of get that over. You're saying, oh my God, I'm actually spending a little bit too much time on this, where this is actually what gives me income. So kind of to figure that out, because we have this thing in our mind about how things are going, but then when we actually look at it, it can be quite different. I'll link to a video I made about time audits. That is actually 2 videos, but I'll link to the one with explaining what I actually did, so that you have an idea of that, how you can do that in terms of figuring out how you spend your time in general. But for this tracking part, I very much mean down to the task. And that's a different thing that I would encourage you to do. Track your tasks. What are the tasks that you're actually spending your time on? What is the tasks that you're doing in general? And then the last thing of those 3 is also track your energy. So I know that I have much more energy in the morning, or if I'm with people, I'm extroverted, I get energy from being around people. So I know, for example, for filming this kind of video, I want to do that in the morning because I know this is when I have the energy for it. And when you look back at my previous videos, you can almost see which videos are done in the morning and which are done in the afternoon, because my energy level is different. So yeah, so track your numbers, track your tasks, track your time, and track your energy. And the last thing I want you to track, or keep track of at least, is recommendations and referrals. So basically you want to ask for both. Ask your current clients that you have a good relationship with, is there anyone that you want me to reach out to that you think I could help? Or is there anyone you would refer to me? I would deeply appreciate it. And then again, if you feel like it's a good relationship you have with this client, then ask them to give you a recommendation. And you can even, again, put this into a system so it automates so that every time someone has had 3 sessions, or depending on what you're selling, right? They get an automated email saying, hey, I would love it if you would go in and evaluate me on Google or in this form so you can use it for your social media or whatever it is. So people automatically get this opportunity to actually help you along the way. And I have to say, the recommendations are priceless to use in your content, your marketing, but also just personally. It's a very, very amazing thing to have people get back to you with positive. So absolutely freaking love that. And you need to do that. What system are you going to implement first? Let me know in the comments because they're all super important. So I would love to hear it. And then if you need help with development of systems or accountability to get going, reach out. That's what I do. And with joy and excitement, have an amazing day.